Vice Chair of the DNC Small Business Council. We have, as Bruce said, we have a lot of people stuck out in security. But I think we're going to get started with Congresswoman Judy Chu, because she has to leave. And so until everybody comes, we can at least be, still have an exciting program, right? So come on, Congressman, yeah. And please give a big hand to Congresswoman Judy Chu of California. Sorry, I don't have an introduction.
Oh. Well, thank you, Christine. I really appreciate it. I'm Congressmember Judy Chu, and I come from the wonderful district of Pasadena, California, in Southern California. Yes. And I am thrilled to be here at the Small Business Council of the DNC. So, are we going to elect Kamala Harris as our president? I am so excited, and I am so excited to be able to continue the policies of the Biden-Harris administration when it comes to small business. And I have to tell you that I have been a member of the House Small Business Committee since the beginning of my time in Congress, which is 2009. So now it's my 15th year of being on the Small Business Committee. But it is because I know what small businesses mean to our country. Small businesses are nearly half of all private sector employees. Small businesses created 2/3 of nearly all new jobs over the past 30 years. 99.9% of all businesses in America are small businesses. But in my district, small businesses are very, very key and central. They are the ones that have ensured that our immigrants, our women, our underserved populations, and veterans have been able to get a job, the best job that they can have, which is the job that they created themselves. And it's our job to make sure that they can be as successful as they can. Today, we do know small businesses face serious challenges. They have a harder time accessing capital, especially those businesses that are owned by women or people of color or are in rural areas. They have access to fewer resources, like the teams of lawyers that help big corporations pay so little in taxes. And small businesses have to worry about securing affordable health insurance and stable retirement plans for themselves and their employees. But Donald Trump and congressional Republicans are clearly fighting just for the big corporations, not small businesses. They slashed the corporate tax rate under the Trump tax scam, making it harder for small businesses to compete with huge companies. They continue to threaten to overturn the Affordable Care Act, which did greatly help small business owners and sole proprietors to get health insurance, especially if they have pre-existing conditions. Congressional Republicans even proposed slashing the Small Business Administration, or SBA, and cutting the budget by 31%, which would decimate the resource centers and capital access programs that help the smallest businesses succeed. And indeed, I have seen programs like the Small Business Development Centers, the Women Business Centers, truly help the new business, the business that wants to expand, giving them the hands-on information and resources that they need. Democrats, on the other hand, are working hard to address the challenges of small businesses, and they are making the country an even better place to start a small business. We fought for underserved businesses during the pandemic. When PPP first started, there were so many that called my office and complained that they could not get a loan despite having an account at a bank for so many years. But it turns out those big banks were only giving those loans to their biggest customers, those who had big loans. That's why we, in the Small Business Committee, decided to have a $60 billion set-aside that would be administered just by community development finance agencies, CDCs, credit unions, and community banks, because they know the local small businesses of the area. And indeed, this was a very successful program. Those dollars, those PPP dollars, then went to those who really needed it. And there are programs like Community Advantage, which I have actually championed. Community Advantage is a pilot program, or was a pilot program for a long time, that helped the most underserved small businesses, because there are still small businesses out there that can't get a loan due to the fact that they may not have the credit history or the assets. And so Community Advantage gives them a chance by taking greater risk. So I sponsored legislation that would strengthen and codify this program, making it permanent so that there could be the access to capital given to the most underserved of businesses. I am so glad that actually the SBA administrator already implemented this permanency by rule, but I want to do it by statute so that we can make sure no future administration can overturn such a thing. And then, of course, I also want to strengthen the program. And we are making sure that we create a new corporate minimum tax, meaning that no longer will huge corporations pay nothing in corporate taxes. Yeah, that is not right when we know that all the small businesses out there have to do that. So we even have proof that these policies are working. Under the Biden-Harris administration, we've experienced a historic small business boom nationwide. The administration has overseen the first, second, and third strongest years for new business applications in history. And Black ownership rates are even growing at the fastest pace in 30 years. So I am really looking forward to a Harris-Walz administration. I know that they are committed to this record of success. It's up to us to put them in the White House and deliver Democratic majorities in the House and Senate so that small businesses can continue to thrive. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to speak to you today, and let's work together to make sure all small businesses thrive. I just want to give a shout out. He wasn't here before, but I have to give a shout out to my good friend who's been the head of the Small Business Council since forever.
Yeah, since it was founded in 2012.
So it's 2 decades then.
Yes.
That Andrew Lackman has been the chair of the Small Business Council. Let's give him a great big hand. So thank you for everything that you do, Andrew.
Thank you. I've known the Congresswoman since she was on the board of, running for Board of Equalization back when I used to be on the secretary for the Democratic Party of the San Fernando Valley. So we go back a long ways, and you have been so wonderful, especially with the small business issues. You've been on the Small Business Committee for a long time. And you know, it doesn't always have the panache or the sexiness of the people who want to be on Ways and Means and many of these other committees, Foreign Affairs, but this is a place where it affects people's lives in so many different ways, and having someone with such dedication to small business as you've had is very much appreciated by us as Democrats, and an example for all of us. My name is Andrew Lackman. I am the chair of the Small Business Council. Used to be the Small Business Owners Council, but frankly, there are lots of people who play lots of roles in small business, and for so many of them, we're like family anyway. So it just made sense to get rid of the O and became a Small Business Council. We've been around since 2012 under then Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and actually then also formerly Governor, then Senator Tim Kaine came up with the idea of reaching out small business more. And it's a big, it's an area in which, frankly, we've given too much space to the Republicans. They like to pretend that they care about big business, small business, but they really just care about big business. And I think, you know, what you'll see with us here is that you'll see over and over again that it's Democrats who have been making the difference to help small businesses. across this country. And when it comes to our core issues, access to capital, also with respect to keeping out predatory practices that large businesses are so well known for anyone who has a Walmart in their community. Not that we're mentioning any names, Walmart, but nevertheless, we all both know what they're talking about with that. Whether it's making sure that during the pandemic that small businesses had the support to keep their doors open, and not just conventional businesses, but everywhere from your community theater to your local restaurants, it's because of Democrats. And when it comes to promoting innovation, again, and you'll see as we talk about the CHIPS Act and we talk about the Inflation Reduction Act, the American Rescue Plan, executive orders from this president and the legacy inherited that we will be blessed to have when Vice President Harris gets into the White House, it's because of Democrats. And Democrats in the House have made a big difference too. I'm going to very quickly, before we go into the next set of speakers, do a very quick introduction and acknowledgement of this amazing executive board that I work with and the state caucus chairs. So I mentioned in 2012, there were 2 and only 2 small business councils or caucuses that existed. California, I chaired that one, and Virginia. We now have 14. And it continues to, 15. You guys are official now. Congratulations. So that's one of the ones we've been working on for a long time, so we're really very excited. But we have ones from Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, District of Columbia, New Jersey. In the Midwest, we've had one in Michigan that we're in the process of revitalizing. And then Arizona, California, Washington, and Oregon. And we've had ones at various times also in Wisconsin and Oregon, but this is a great chance for those of you who are Democratic activists who want to get involved. Small business needs that seat at the table. And we get, as we said, many of the Republicans, they talk a good game, but the action isn't there. But if we're there and we can talk with our partners in labor and the environmental community, we're more allies than people think. And when it comes to many of the immutable characteristic communities, those are the communities that power small business in this country. If you look at the growth under the Obama years, which are some of our best years for small growth, except for small business growth, except for, of course, under the Biden years, which blew that away, I would add. It's communities of color and businesses owned by women and owned by veterans that have really driven this boom. And you see the numbers of entrepreneurs and small business owners, black business owners, Latino, AAPI, LGBT, Native American. They are all of you, and we are small business together. So speaking of that, I want to take a moment to acknowledge a lot of my board here, who frankly have done so much of the work with this one this time around. In addition to this, as I mentioned, I've been since 2012, but I was just also elected Western States Caucus Chair for the DNC, and one should only have one job at a time, although anyone who has a small business knows that's not the case. No. So in my case, I'm also running for school board in my town. It's because I'm Jewish and I love suffering. But I've been very blessed with an amazing board, frankly, that has done so much of the work that you're going to see here today. So I want to start by thanking my executive vice chair, Christine Chin Ryan from Oregon. I don't think Rhett Buttle is here right. Oh, here it is over there. Hey. So Rhett has done business outreach and small business outreach for Clinton as well as for Biden. A lot of the programming that we saw in 2020 was because of his innovation, and we're very blessed to have him, someone who's worked for the Small Business Administration. Public-private Strategies is an amazing organization that does so much work, and a lot of the organizations that you'll see speaking here are parts of networks that he has put together. Also, is Annette Krause here yet? Or I think, so Annette is from Texas. I forgot we have a Texas Small Business Caucus that has been very active. And she is our secretary. She gets stuff done as well. And then my other vice chairs here are Atticus Franken from Illinois. So he's hosting all of us at his place later. Brigitte Hunley would be here, but she actually had to go in for emergency surgery. So she's from California. She covers the Pacific states, but we wish her a speedy recovery as well. And somewhere around here, I think also Clay Middleton, who is from South Carolina, who is one of our other vice chairs. We also have region directors, which help organize in each area. And I want to start with my original region director, Mark Kennedy, who has been a machine in terms of outreach and helping us. There are folks who are ready to go in Georgia and Alabama. And then, of course, getting Florida back online is because of his work. So thank you, Mark. He also chairs the Virginia Small Business Council. Mark Robert Gordon, my fellow DNC member from Arizona, has been organizing in the Mountain States and has done a great job with outreach states like Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. Omar Hashwi from Michigan, who also used to be a member of our California board. See, one of our best sports is Californians. He's done an amazing job. And then we also have our region, and Anne-Marie Principe, who is our Northeast region director and who's done amazing work with a lot of the speakers who we have today. And I have just learned so much from you in terms of this, in terms of how I put these events together. So thank you. We have 2 at-large members who are there. I don't think I see, Stafford here? She is from our Native American communities, our Native liaison. And then, of course, Manny Crespin, who is the vice chair of New Mexico, a small business owner, and also is the treasurer for the Western States Caucus. So I don't know where you get all that energy from, but it's been amazing and so pleased to work with you. And then we actually have a position, a special rural liaison position, because so often, I think in the Democratic Party, there was a tendency to want to write off our rural areas, and that's not the case. And just because the Republican Party has tried to grab control of every messaging mechanism that exists in these rural areas. You go to church, the pastors are telling you to vote Republicans. You go to the Veterans Building, VFW, they try to tell you to vote Republican. But it's small business owners in these communities, many of them, by the way, veterans as well, who are active and who, again, their employees are like their families, and that's what makes them Democrats. Especially, I was reminded this is last night, I was at the Field Museum, which, you've got lots of great history there, and as I was surrounded by these dinosaur skeletons, I was just so appreciative that Republicans like that could join us. It was a great event as well. But Judith, who served with the Obama administration and who has joined us and is also from Texas, Judith Canales, worked with the Department of Agriculture, and who you'll be able to hear speaking tomorrow as she introduces one of our speakers when we have Governor Beshear here tomorrow. So Wednesday, thank you. So Wednesday, yes. So you're going to show up here tomorrow, and you go, what is this? So I want to thank my executive board, because without their leadership and their work, this event would not have happened. And it's great that we can be back here in person. Many of you may have signed on to our virtual ones in Milwaukee, but this is going to be even better because we can be here together and remind ourselves what is at stake for our small businesses, what is at stake for our country if we don't elect Kamala Harris to the White House, and if we don't have Tim Walz as the vice president, and if we don't make sure that Democrats hold on to the Senate and take back the House. It's going to be very important. So I think we can move on. Who do we have next in terms of our speaker here? Because I know we're moving some things around. I guess Senator Hirono is here. So it's my pleasure to have Senator Hirono here. Oh, Annette, there you are. It's because of her and Omar that we have a website and we have a newsletter. So let's thank them for their work. I will just, Anne-Marie, do you want to introduce Senator Hirono? Okay, you got it. Let me just pull this up here so I have my introductions and everything. There we go. Yes. And I will say it's such a privilege to see you again. Coming from an immigrant family, it's a reminder of small business. Ted Lieu isn't here today, but he also, who I used to work for, used to tell me stories of growing up in his parents' gift shop and working there. And we remind ourselves, especially immigrant families that didn't have mentors to tell them, hey, this is how you do a business cycle. This is how you set aside your money. They, like many disadvantaged communities, have a much narrower margin for error. And so it was no different. She grew up on her grandparents' rice farm in Fukushima, Japan, and then came to the United States, where her mother worked for a Japanese language newspaper, another small business, and worked 2 jobs as a single mother to keep food on the table. She spent time at the University of Hawaii and got involved with community service through that, including participation in the protest movement against the then Vietnam War. She went to law school and became an advocate. Went to Georgetown. That's the other school, I think, in D.C., right? I went to George Washington. I have to, yeah.
My husband went to GW.
Oh, I didn't realize you had a mixed marriage.
Yes.
Okay. And worked for the Attorney General's office. And then from there, was elected, ran for the Hawaii House of Representatives, heading up the Consumer Protection Committee, elected lieutenant governor in '94, and ran for governor, and then was elected to Congress in 2006 in the U.S. Senate. And the most important thing, why we're so happy to have her here, is that she sits on the Small Business Committee. And we'll get the chance to hear about how important is the role of what they've been doing, whether it was PPP loans, and I don't want to take away too many talking points, but it's their leadership and what they have done that helped keep so many small businesses afloat. So it's my pleasure to welcome Senator Hirono. We're very honored to have you here, and Anne-Marie Principe will have a wonderful conversation and some great questions. Thank you.
Testing, yes. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Senator Hirono, we're so happy to have you here, and you are a member of the Senate Small Business Committee. How do democratic policies help small businesses recover after the pandemic?
First of all, aloha, everybody. It's great to see you guys. And I have what? I'm sorry?
Here, you take this one. And I'll
Yes,
take
that's better. Can everybody hear? Okay, aloha, everybody. It's great to see you. And when I came in, there are a lot of moving parts here, and I'm just really glad to be in this room with you folks. But when I plot myself down, who should be sitting near me but Congressman from Kentucky, McGarvey. Yes, okay, let's give him a hand. He's here. We are constantly told that small businesses are the backbone of our economy in our country, and of course during COVID, small businesses suffered a lot. And with the with the leadership of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we managed to pass a lot of really important legislation. Probably the most important for small business is PPP, and for Hawaii small businesses, almost $4 billion. In PPP came to our small businesses just to enable them to keep going. I have visited many small businesses in Hawaii, and I've asked them, did PPP help you? And they did. Invariably, that is what enabled them to keep their workers. And so we really worked hard on this committee. At that time, it was led by Ben Cardin of Maryland, and we continue to listen, because I think that's one of the most important things we can do with businesses is to listen to what their needs are, and then to enact legislation that will address the particular concerns. So, I am all for the small business development centers. I visited a number of them in Hawaii, and they train people to begin to start small businesses. Also, we have centers that help women to become small business owners. So these are all programs that I continue to support.
That's wonderful, thank you. I've listened to John Oliver speak about how Native Hawaiians and minorities feel that they're being priced out of rebuilding after the wildfires. How is it that Democrats can be sure that the minorities and small businesses are included in that rebuilding?
Oh, that's because it is the Democrats, frankly, who support programs that specifically target minority businesses, like the 8A. Some of you may be familiar with 8A and the Native Hawaiian and Alaska Native small business programs that we have. So this is a committee that makes sure that all of those programs continue to be funded. And even in things like the climate change, I announced some $2 million, small but enough, to address some of the concerns of the Native Hawaiian communities and weatherizing their homes and incorporating more solar panels, for example, and all of those kinds of things. They may be small grants, but it matters. So some $2 million, for example, to Native Hawaiian organizations to reach out to Native Hawaiian communities to enable them to do these kinds of things to address climate change. So in ways large and small, we make sure that our small businesses and Native-owned businesses are included in the contracts and all of the things that matter to them. But a large part of it is paying attention to their concerns and then addressing them in a very specific way.
Right, and I'm sure they appreciate being listened to. And as a follow-up to that, minorities make up 32% of our population, yet only 18% own small businesses. Can you tell us your thoughts and share information on legislation and how Democrats can change this?
So as I mentioned, what we have what are known as 8A programs and programs that support Native Hawaiian businesses, and these are some very specific program areas that we fund so that the minority-owned businesses have a fair shake at the opportunities that should be provided to them. I want to make it very clear, though, that a lot of these programs, and some of these can be deemed DEI, you're familiar with diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are attacks on DEI programs by corporations, by obviously universities, and that there is a lawsuit that a lot of groups are paying attention to. It's called the Fearless Fund lawsuit. How many of you have heard of Fearless Fund? Good. So what Fearless Fund is, it's an organization that provided grants to venture capital grants to Black women-owned businesses, because we all know that minority-owned businesses, and especially women-owned businesses, and all small businesses, being able to get venture capital, being able to access funding is one of their major concerns. So there is a lawsuit that was filed against Fearless Fund that provided venture capital to Black-owned women businesses. And the same people who brought the lawsuit, the affirmative action lawsuit that involved Harvard and North Carolina universities and won, in this, what I call this out-of-control Supreme Court. And so the same people who brought that lawsuit filed a lawsuit against Fearless Fund, which is being watched by a lot of entities because we have a lot of programs that help minority-owned businesses. And if this fund is deemed unconstitutional because it targets black-owned women for venture capital, then I think we can see a lot of attacks on just about every kind of program that provides funding for what I would consider and call DEI programs. So we all need to pay attention. This is a lawsuit that right now the 11th Circuit took a hand at it, and it could very well go to our Supreme Court. And I am very concerned about what this Supreme Court will do to this kind of targeted support for minority-owned businesses.
And so my final question to you is, I think all of us can feel the difference in energy in the campaign in DC and everywhere you go.
Yes.
What most excites you about a woman president and what she's going to do for all of us and small business?
We love Joe Biden and the courage and the love for our country and the decision he made that set the stage for my friend Kamala Harris. I consider Kamala a friend. She and I sat on the Judiciary Committee, which is probably one of the most argumentative. I don't know if any of you watch CNN. If you watched her ask Bill Barr questions and Kavanaugh questions that they can't answer, and I used to sit, well, the three of us, it was me, Cory Booker, and Kamala Harris, the three of us sat next to each other on that Judiciary Committee, and she called us the POCs. You know what that stands for? People of color on that committee, and we sat next to each other. We had a lot of nonverbal communication among ourselves, and somebody called my office and said, do they make them all sit together like that? And we said, we are the most recent additions to that committee, which gives you an idea how long it took for POC people to get onto that committee. But Kamala and I sat near each other for 4 years. I got to know her. I watched her competence and her. I really enjoyed it when she went after people like Bill Barr and Kavanaugh and asked Kavanaugh, is there anything, yes, is there any law that forces men to do certain things with their body or have certain things done to their bodies? And he sat there and he couldn't answer. He kind of went, what? I don't understand. Yeah, and she moved on. But, you know, she made her point. So she brings a kind of commitment and energy that our country needs for freedom and democracy, and it's just so delightful, and I'm grateful to Joe Biden. And of course, my friend, Tim Walz, who was elected to the U.S. House the same year I was elected there in 2006, so he's my classmate from 2006, the majority-making class that enabled Nancy Pelosi to become the first female Speaker of the House. Yes. So we have a great team, and you know what? There's just so much energy and happiness and joy in this election, and we are going to get this done because, one, we need to, and two, this is a team that's going to help us do it with all of us. So the diversity that I see in this audience is what makes our country great.
Well,
Mahalo.
I would like to ask all of you to please thank the senator for coming here and joining us and
Aloha.
and bringing her energy to the room, and thank you so much for coming.
Mahalo. Everybody stay safe. Be kind. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Thank you. And I'd like to take a moment now to introduce our Virginia, our region director, chair of the Small Business Caucus for Virginia, who's going to introduce our next speaker. But very appropriate since he's responsible for development in the Southern Caucasus states. So come on up, Mark Kennedy.
Thank you very much, sir. All right. Folks, y'all ready to turn Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz into the President and the Vice President of the United States? And let me hear you. That's what I'm talking about. I hate wearing these glasses, but this print is so small. So I'm here to introduce Congressman Morgan Garvey. And he is the congressman who represents Kentucky's 3rd Congressional District. McGarvey serves on the House Small Business Committee. We need to talk, Congressman. Also, he is a lifelong Louisvillian who, before being elected to the Congress, served for a decade as a Kentucky State Senate, in the Kentucky State Senate. My glasses are working me here. Including 4 years as a minority leader of the Senate Democratic Caucus. Folks, without further ado, Congressman Morgan McGarvey.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll tell you what, my name is Morgan McGarvey. I am the congressman from Louisville, Kentucky. I serve on the Small Business Committee, and I am so excited to be here with you guys today. What I am not excited to do is follow Senator Hirono and Representative Chu because they have already done such an amazing job giving you the state of small business. So it's like, okay, now that they've told you all so much great information, what do I say? And immediately I thought of the wonderful movie, the Oscars just missed it, Billy Madison. And I don't know if you guys have seen Billy Madison, but he has to go speak, and when given the opportunity to speak and doesn't know what to say, he just says, "Nib high football rules." So Kamala Harris is going to be our next president of the United States. And it's a damn good thing, too, because one thing I can tell you, being a lifelong Louisvillian and serving on the Small Business Committee, we know the importance of small businesses in our community. We know when we say things like small businesses are the backbone of the American economy, it's because we shop there. It's because we buy there. It's because we work there. It's because we know the people who work there who are sponsoring the Little League teams, the community festivals, and are truly putting their hands in the dirt and making our communities what they are. And guess what? They're doing it. But they can't just do it alone. Because being an entrepreneur, owning a business, creating a better life for you and your family, that is the American dream. But it is an American dream from which we have excluded too many groups of people for too long. And I say this, I got a wonderful introduction, thank you, but any other Southerners here? Do we have any other Southerners? Good. All right. We have to be honest about it. And when you live in Kentucky, we are still feeling the effects of racism and segregation today. And this wasn't an accident. These were intentional policy choices. And only what policy has done can policy undo. And so let's talk about Vice President Harris and the record of the Biden-Harris administration. Because part of the reason we are enthusiastic today is we are seeing a boom in American small businesses because of intentional decisions and investments by Vice President Harris and President Joe Biden. We are making sure that minority-owned businesses are getting the much-needed access to capital that they need to create successful businesses. Whether it's Fleur de Tea in Louisville, Kentucky, or whether it is somewhere in your community, you know that our minority entrepreneurs have been denied a shot at the American dream, and they can create it if we just give them the platform and the chance. That is our work on the small business community. And if you think a con man and a failed businessman in Donald Trump is going to look out for every business in America, then you didn't pay attention for the first time he was president or for his entire business career before that. So we are doing good things. And the American dream doesn't just extend to minority-owned businesses. Let's talk about making sure that people who are differently abled, people with disabilities, are also getting the shot to be entrepreneurs. On the small business community, I have introduced and passed a bill through the committee that will help our differently abled entrepreneurs achieve that same American dream. Because we know this, we say it all the time, but let's think about it in reality and how we make it true. We're only as strong as our weakest link. And when we talk about small businesses and the importance they play, the backbone of the American economy, we cannot systemically deny any group of people access to that dream. So we've got it right now. American small businesses are booming. Record numbers of new jobs created, record numbers of economic investments, record appeal to our entire economy. Right? And it's something we must continue. And so in everything else you're going to hear this week, from reproductive rights to climate change to public safety, don't forget too about the economic message and small business importance in that economy. And that is also at stake in this election. So I so appreciate you all being here, for caring about our small businesses. Because as we like to say on the Small Business Committee in Washington, small businesses do big things. And there's not a single big business we've got in this country that didn't start as a small business, as a person using their sweat equity, their intelligence, their grit to, again, make a business that improves their lives and the lives of the people in their community. So let's keep up that trend. Let's elect Kamala Harris as President of the United States this November, and keep our small businesses and the American economy on the right track. Thank you all so much.
Okay. Can someone grab Anne Marie for a moment? I think she's outside. Christine? Okay, thank you. All right. So, thank you very much. We're also going to be closing. Okay. All right, sounds good. All right. So, I would like to, it's been great to hear from our elected officials, but the best stories we tell and we hear are from small business owners themselves. And so we're very lucky here today to have just such an entrepreneur with us, one who has found a wonderful way of not only fusing in her community, but if I remember right, fusing Indian Latino flavors together as well in her restaurants, and it has made a big difference in her community and influencing and inspiring many other entrepreneurs in the community, in her community as well. It's my pleasure to introduce Rohini Day. And did I get the last name correctly? Okay, good.
Hello, Chicago! And the DNC. Such a privilege to be here today. I stand here as a proud ambassador of women, of immigrants, of small business owners, of values, and when I say values, I'm not talking about misogynist bullshit. So, a little bit about me. Came to the US for a PhD, was hell-bent on saving the world, worked at the World Bank in DC, went entrepreneurial 20 years ago with a restaurant, before that McKinsey & Company. I am a strong advocate of all of us have multiple identities. None of us is a monolith, right? And there are so many things we stand for. So let me just break it down a little bit. I am actually your poster child as the antithesis of Project 2025. Number one, let's talk about, I really want us to change the narrative. I think there is so much to be optimistic about. We are doing wonderfully. The whole world envies the US. Our macroeconomic policy under the Biden-Harris administration has been phenomenal. With our fiscal policy, we've stimulated the economy, we've helped small businesses like mine, you heard about the PPP, but also we brought down inflation tremendously. We have restored full employment amazingly. We've brought up GDP growth phenomenally. The rest of the world envies us. There are other advanced economies like Japan, all of EU, all of Asia, Africa that don't touch us when it comes to this success. So why are we on the defensive? We should be parading what we do from the rooftops and celebrating it wildly, including our monetary policy, which has brought down inflation significantly after we were teetering on the edge on the precipice after COVID, where the whole world was. So that is my macroeconomist hat from the World Bank. I also happen to know that trade can be very good for us, and I know that a tariff is not a tax on consumers. It is a tax on consumers, it's not a tax on countries. So we cannot have ignorant, mispackaged agencies or personas running our policy. Coming back to small business. After the World Bank and McKinsey, I launched Vermilion, my restaurant 21 years ago. 4 years ago, I launched a group called Let's Talk Women. This is the thick of the pandemic, when we were all at crisis, that we were almost on the verge of bankruptcy. I started it with 20 women owners in Chicago, collaborating to boost our women-owned businesses together, and I have now grown it to 15 cities and 900 of us. Isn't that effing amazing? So that is Let's Talk Women, solely small businesses, solely focused on boosting businesses all year round, beyond pretty parties and panels, because those are lovely, but they don't change the dynamic. The third aspect I want to talk about is as a woman. I think this is very important to all of our small business owners. I mean, we are 40% of small businesses. We happen to be only 7% of the revenue, which is a travesty. That needs to change. And while I'm a big fan of the SBA, I launched my business with an SBA loan. I know how tough. Only 14% of the loan dollars go to women. And I'm hoping that this administration will transform that and will quadruple or even triple the loan dollars to women to take it to 40%, which is what women-owned businesses are in this country. So there's hope. I know they're doing a lot with the earned income tax credit, with the child care credit to help our employees manage and have a sustainable, livable lifestyle and not have to just eke out a living. So there's a lot to be optimistic about. As a woman, it would be remiss to not mention that I strongly stand for reproductive freedom. How can you mandate motherhood? How ridiculous is that? Even Margaret Atwood would laugh at that. So I stand for that. I cannot, no misogynist language, whether it's grabbing or whatever, is okay. No locker room talk is okay. None of that is acceptable. Or demeaning women for their intelligence just because they are the other sex, whether you're catless or not, I don't fucking care. So, I thank you again for this platform. In closing, I would also like to celebrate the other thing that this country has amazingly going for it, which is its immigrants. Our higher education system is a beacon for talent. At any point, we have over 1 million of the world's brightest, best students who flock to our shows. They run our STEM, our business, our finance, our doctors, you name it. When you look around, you see them. And what do? After they finish school and after they have invested in their education, we turn them away. We issue 65,000 H-1B visas a year. So I would urge our administration to, and I know how embracing of immigrants they are as opposed to the counter, to quadruple our H-1B visas and invest in immigrant talent and incent them to stay. I know I'm running out of time, but I also want to talk about the undocumented immigrants who power our farms, our warehouses, our distribution our centers, our kitchens. They are not just the backbone of our economy, but they are the most hardworking, the most talented, and the most driven. And I hope we will celebrate all of us for who we are. A lot to celebrate, a lot of the narrative to change, and may the best woman win.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And I would also add, just to back up these wonderful points here that were made, and thank you very much for addressing us today, is, people want to pretend that reproductive choice is not a small business issue. It is when you can't watch out for your employees. It is when your employees can't get the health care they need, and don't have the ability to make the choices in their own lives. So it damn straight, reproductive choice is a small business issue for all of us. So I'm going to move along to our panel. We're very excited to have here. First of all, our wonderful moderator, who you've already seen so far, Christine Chin Ryan from Oregon, herself a small business owner. Our panel includes David Namkung, who is founder and managing partner of Clarity Partners and co-founder at Kinsey and partner at Kinsey Capital. Charity Dean, who is the president and CEO of the Michigan Black Business Alliance. George Hornado, Hornado Business Strategies. And someone who I've seen around the DNC for a very long time. And Claire, another one of my fellow DNC members from the great state of Arizona, where we're going to continue to have 2 Democratic senators. Clara Pratt, who is the principal and founder of Strongbow Strategies. And finally, our vice chair and my friend Rhett Buttle, who's the president of Private Public Strategies. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And thank you all for your patience as we juggle things around. I am Christine Chen Ryan, and it's great to be here in Chicago. Last time I was here was 2 years ago, right? Yeah. My name is Christine Chen Ryan. I'm the Executive Vice Chair of the DNC Small Business Council. I'm also a small business owner for over 35 years. I'm president of Synergy Consulting, Inc. in Oregon. A previous DNC delegate from Oregon twice. Board Vice Chair of the Filipino American Chamber of Commerce of Oregon. And I hold numerous positions in advocacy and activism in Oregon. The next portion of our meeting, this is a panel discussion about the importance of minority-owned businesses, how they have benefited from the Biden-Harris administration, and how, as a minority-owned business, we can be helpful in this election. David Namkung, he's the founder, managing partner, Clarity Partners, co-founder and partner at Kinsey Capital Partners. David was featured by Chicago United in their Business Leaders of Color publication and was awarded the inaugural President's Award in 2022. He's also a 2024 Illinois at-large Democratic delegate. Charity R. Dean, President and CEO of Michigan Black Business Alliance. The Michigan Black Business Alliance serves as the Black Chamber of Commerce, serving Black businesses in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County, Michigan. Before launching this regional Chamber of Commerce for Black businesses, Dean serves as the Director of Civil Rights, Inclusion, and Opportunity for the City of Detroit. George Hornio, and I've known him too. I don't know. President of Hornio Strategies. His company specializes in government advertising, political strategy, and athlete advocacy. George started his career as a political appointee in the Obama administration, where he served as a communication aide at the U.S. Department of Justice under Attorneys General Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch. Clara Pratt is the principal and founder of Strongboat Strategies, LLC, in 2013, a government services firm, and joined the Navajo Power Leadership Team in 2018 to implement new energy development models on the Navajo Nation. Her past experience includes serving as the Tribal Engagements Director for the Biden-Harris campaign and transition, Navajo Nation Chief of Staff, and the Navajo Nation Executive Director of the Washington, D.C. office, and many more. Finally, my fellow Vice Chair of the DNC Small Business Council, Rhett Buttle. He's President of Private Public Partnerships. Rhett is an entrepreneur, advocate, and one of the most trusted leaders at the intersection of business and policy in Washington, D.C. He has worked for President Biden, Vice President Harris, President Barack Obama, Secretary Hillary Clinton, and Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger in government and campaign roles. Okay, our first question is, Republicans have branded themselves as the party of business. I personally think that is a false narrative. Why are you here as a small business owner supporting the Democratic Party? Speakers, you have 2 minutes to answer the question, and we'll go ahead and start with Rhett, right here. This is.
Maybe while we're working on the other mics, I'll just start quickly. Look, I think what has allowed America to thrive has been the fact that we're a nation that's based off rule of law. We have clear rules and signals. This is a country where you've had the freedom to be able to do anything you've wanted, started your own business. And I would just add that I think that those are the choices in this election and the things that are at risk, right? So when we look on the other side of the aisle, we see someone who does not respect the rule of law, right? Someone who does not provide sort of clarity in all of those pieces. And I think what's most important is when we think about who is trusted in society, we're living in a very interesting moment where trusted messengers are becoming more difficult. But you look out across the country and most people trust business leaders and small business owners. Gallup has been doing a poll probably now for decades since the Nixon administration, looking at sort of the trust of institutions in society. One of the things that we've seen is that small business owners really continue to rise as important trusted messengers, and that's because they're community leaders, they're employers, all the important things that we heard in the panel today. And so for business owners to really be out there sort of talking about those pieces and the really important piece that rule of law plays in providing stability for their business and allows their business owners to thrive, I think is going to be really critical over the next few months. That has been a narrative in the past that has been captured by the Conservative Party, but I really think over the last few cycles, we've really made a lot of advancements. What's been particularly impressive about the Biden-Harris administration has been their track record, and a lot of their work that has been focused on undergirding small businesses really strengthened some of that narrative. And in particular, the vice president, as many of you know and have experienced, is a stalwart for small businesses. Almost every time she travels somewhere, she stops in a local business to hear from a small business owner. She's hosted thousands of small business owners at her residence, hearing from them, really sort of emphasizing the important role small businesses play. And so I think over the last few, I would say probably 3 or 4 cycles, we've done a really great job of sort of bringing small businesses into the fold. And there's so much more opportunity to do so. And I think through that work and working with people like you in the audience today, I think we can continue to sort of really show that that narrative is really important.
David, go ahead.
I don't think it's, no.
Yeah, we're going to share this.
I don't know.
All right. So I feel like I'm a case study for why the Democratic Party is so important to small businesses. I'm an immigrant, here to the immigrants. I came to this country from South Korea as a little child, and in many ways kind of lived the traditional American dream. But along the way, the policies that helped me be successful around growing a business, which now by some definitions isn't small, but that should be the goal, right? We should start small, and the policies that the Democrats have supported, put in place, and fostered have allowed me to grow one business to a point that I may not even be small anymore. But at the same time, the root of the business, we still employ 45% women, 55% minorities in the business, and that's the waterfall effect that the policy has in practice. And then I've gone on to start a private equity firm, which now we invest in other businesses, and in those businesses, we look stronger, more closely at their employment, their customer base, and how they serve their people, to the point where there's an additional cascading effect that happens as well. So these things are important, and when you see them play out over 20 years, you can see the impact and why the Democratic Party really is the party for small businesses and business in general.
So when COVID hit in the city of Detroit, my responsibility as the then director of civil rights was to lead the small business response. And it was during that time that I recognized really entrepreneurship, specifically Black entrepreneurship, as a pathway of resistance. A lot of times it's a workforce pathway, but it's also an opportunity to help close the racial wealth gap that we have in our country and in our state. And so as the leader of a Black business organization, but also I run a Black business myself, I own a coffee shop in my neighborhood, I can look to the policies of the last 4 years and see direct impact, not just for myself, but also for our members. We've got about 1,500 members across the state of Michigan, Black businesses that have been able to take advantage of, whether it's PPP or the Restaurant Revitalization Fund or ARPA dollars that went specifically to small business support hubs to make sure that businesses were able to get technical assistance that they need. And so I look at the alternative, and it is bleak. There is a lot at risk. Just in the last 4 years alone, the SBA has doubled their business loans to Black businesses. And again, that is the intentional policies that have made a difference that can help close the racial wealth gap. So that's my why.
I think that the idea that the Republican Party is the party of business is
Can you
just
get it
plain.
closer, George?
Oh. I think the idea that the Republican Party is the party of business is just plain wrong. You can't claim to be the party of business and not invest in education. You can't claim to be the party of business and not invest in healthcare. You can't claim to be the party of business and not invest in workforce development. You know, so whereas the Republican Party is the party of big business and the 1%, it's the Democratic Party that is focused on building an economy that works for everybody. It's the Democratic Party that it's a Democratic Party that's focused on pushing and prioritizing policies that bring a level playing field. And I think one of the most interesting things, you know, in what's been talked about by some of the other panelists, but some of the other speakers as well, is talking about all these different issues that we probably treat, you know, too often in silos that are all interrelated. So whether it's, you know, reproductive, you know, freedoms, whether it's poverty, whether it's, you know, the workforce development, healthcare, education, all these different pieces come together. And the Democratic Party understands the importance of that, understands the importance of those investments, but also knows that we need to prioritize and push on things that help, you know, minority-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, you know, making sure that businesses in underserved areas have access to capital, you know, making sure that there's equitable distribution of these resources. And so, you know, that is one of many reasons why, you know, as a small business owner, you know, I am supportive of the Democratic Party and the values that are aligned to really help small businesses grow and thrive and continue to make important impacts in their communities.
Hello, amazing small business interested parties. Hi, my name is Claire Pratt. Yeah, I think just to echo a lot of what folks have said up here, you know, despite what the other side might tell you, the words diversity, equity, and inclusion are not dirty words, right? And that weaponization of those words is counter to what we need to do as small business owners. I'm not just the first in my family to go to college, I'm the first in my family to graduate from high school. And I started my company in 2013, and we quickly grew from employee number 1 to employee 100 plus just a few weeks ago. And that diversity, equity, and inclusion allows me to be a better hiring person. I can meet employees where they're at. I've got employees all over the reservation that have Starlink, because if we don't know where the diverse communities are in this country, how are we going to meet them where they're at? How are we going to employ them? How are we going to service rural communities? And under this administration, that is exactly what the SBA and other agencies have done. So we're meeting diverse entrepreneurs. It's not about just how does business work for a few, it's how does business work for everybody, all of us. How do we all have a seat at the table and leave that ladder down so that more of us can have a seat at the table? And that's what Democrats are doing, delivering for our small businesses every day. And I have to laugh because we had a staff meeting not too long ago, and I said, oh, we've got people in the middle of nowhere. They've got Starlink. They can come in. I don't know about Starlink being a dirty word or not, but it works. And you know, they can call in and we can have a Zoom meeting, and they're able to do business and work and provide for their families and have a career path. And by the way, there's chickens and goats walking out behind them, you know, and they're able to do that. They wouldn't be able to do that if we were not making space available for all of our community members. And that's what diversity brings to the table. And I heard a great quote, said, how can you exclude 90% of the people and say you're servicing the small business community? Because that's what the other side wants to do. And we have to fight like heck to make sure lending opportunities are there for our people, that we make sure that, you know, our Black, our brown, our Asian, our Native businesses, our women-owned businesses, we have seen increased numbers of those folks opening their doors despite a worldwide pandemic. Imagine what we're going to do over the next 4 years with our new president and vice president in place, God willing, and all your help, right? So I think that's what it means when we talk about let's reclaim diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are not bad words. Those are words that are going to make us more powerful together as business owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. The second question is, how have you benefited from policies by Democrats and the Biden-Harris administration? We'll start with David.
So we touched upon it earlier, you know, protecting small business policies that really allow access to whether it's capital or government contracts and mechanisms and vehicles like that have been instrumental in my ability to grow my consulting firm. These are not policies that are supported by the Republican Party. These are Democratic policies that are in place, they're strong, they're defended, they're constantly under attack. In many ways, these are the opportunities that the policies have allowed for me specifically, and so that's why my alignment is pretty clear.
Yeah, I would say, and I kind of mentioned this before, from the Michigan Black Business Alliance through a lot of the ARPA funding that got to our state, where it was able to go directly to small businesses, not only for being able to provide business assistance, so our organization provides legal, accounting, anything a small business needs, but also to fund our programs that help connect our members to capital. So that's one of the ways I think as the Michigan Black Business Alliance we've experienced it. But then Rosa is the name of my coffee shop in Detroit, and we're in the process of getting an SBA loan right now. And again, it's a direct result of really intentionality at the highest level of government.
Nice.
So I'm a newer consultancy, but have had the pleasure of working with a number of small businesses, and there are just so many, you know, achievements and successes to highlight within this administration. So, you know, obviously there's billions of dollars in loans and grants that have been secured by small businesses in a continuation and expansion of you know, COVID relief programs. You know, we've talked a lot today about, you know, increasing access to capital, but it's not just about increasing access to capital, but how do we do so in an equitable way, and making sure that all sorts of communities are able to tap into that. You know, we look at a lot of the federal funding from all these programs like the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, you know, Inflation Reduction Act, and the opportunities that unlocks. So thinking about the 375 you know, funding programs out of the infrastructure law and the 135 funding programs out of the Inflation Reduction Act, as a lot of this money flows to communities across the country, that creates opportunities where small businesses can contract with any given entity, and there's work there. So that's a downstream effect that has a lot of positive impact. You think about innovation. The SBA Office of Investment and Innovation has done a lot to increase support for startups and building capacity and providing technical assistance. One of my clients is the Climate Ready Tech Hub, led by Miami-Dade County. It's a consortium of about 60 plus different entities that was successful recently in receiving implementation funds as part of the CHIPS and Science Act's Regional Technology and Innovation Hub. And before they got the implementation hub, they got the designation. And as part of the designation, it comes with it a lot of different opportunities of support to get from the administration and all sorts of different agencies. And a lot of that is actually with the SBA as well. And so, having a lot of that connective tissue between the consortium and the SBA has really, thrown a lot of gas into the great work that's being done there in South Florida. And so those are just a few examples that I've been able to touch and see firsthand, and knowing that it's exponential, in this room from all the experiences that folks are able to speak to. So there's a lot to be proud of.
Thank you. Yes, all of those things co-sign. And I'm actually an 8A government certified contractor, and I can tell you the difference in the last 4 years has been amazing. First of all, there's investment into upgrading and modernizing the IT infrastructure of the Small Business Administration. So if anybody's ever had to go and fill out a government form and look at something that was built in who knows when, but it looks like 1996, and you almost expect like a little gif of a guy with a little, hammer. But Democrats have invested in upgrading those systems to make it easier for companies like mine to go in and fill out these forms and even submit documentation on these little guys right here. That's been a game changer. So in terms of just accessing that, and then on the bigger picture, something that Rhett has been involved in, and maybe he'll speak to a little bit, is just increasing that voice at the White House level. I've seen several roundtables of small business owners sitting in the highest levels of government in these rooms having conversation with leaders. And when I look at those pictures, they're people that look like us. Just normal folks, It's not Wall Street folks, it's us, and that's really cool.
Thanks, Claire. Yeah, I'll just pick that up, that it's been, pretty remarkable to watch this administration decide who gets to come into the White House and who doesn't. We've been thrilled to be able to partner with them to bring in, I think it's now over 6 groups of hundreds of small business owners to just add their voice. Part of it's just get information about what's going on, but also making sure that small business owners' voices are represented at all levels of government. I do just want to take a moment and celebrate. I don't know, most of you are probably not geeks like me, but just recently the White House released data that over 19 new small businesses have been started in this country. And so as many of you know, the data gets tracked about small business starts. And so that is an impressive, I think, testament to the sort of policy that's being put forth. In addition to the good work that Claire's been talking about that's happening at the SBA, there's positive small business work going on all across the government. So we've seen investments from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, so much funding flowing down, for example, from the Inflation Reduction Act, really providing funds for businesses who want to get involved in new clean energy efforts. And one of the biggest things that I think is really important that shouldn't be understated is the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is a huge accomplishment. It was done bipartisanly. I think we heard, the other side of the aisle talk about an infrastructure week, an infrastructure package for 4 years, but this administration finally delivered an infrastructure package that will be putting funding out for decades. But a large piece of that was it actually codified an agency inside the Department of Commerce called the Minority Business Development Agency, which is really focused on helping minority businesses scale and grow. And those sorts of investments that are targeted and are intentional are really important to economic vitality in our country. And so in addition to obviously all of the things that we've heard, we have the policy credentials, the funding, and the contracting opportunities that we're seeing at the agency level, which doesn't feel very sexy when you go on TV and talk about it or all of those things, but those are the things that change people's lives. They allow new people to start new businesses. They allow businesses to expand. And we know that businesses are more likely to hire in their communities, right, and put more money in the pocket of consumers. And all of that is really what's driving, I think, the economic recovery that we've seen from the pandemic.
Thank you. Now, I'm right next to you, but I heard only 19, but you meant 19 million.
Million.
Thank you, Red. Okay.
I think we're gonna hit 20. I think we're gonna hit 20 too. So. Million.
Thank you. Next question. What do our party leaders need to do to attract more businesses, business supporters? We'll start with Charity.
I think one of the critical things is to really have a fresh look at entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship spans industry, and we can see it at everywhere we go. We talked about rural, urban. I mean, and so I think that one thing that the party can do to attract more businesses is really refreshing our perception of entrepreneurship, because there are a lot of solopreneurs that oftentimes get left out of the conversation. Micro businesses that have 10 employees or less that often get left out of the conversation. And so I think going where people are and really having a renewed perception of what entrepreneurship means is one way to do it. But I think also just the values that our party shares of diversity and of equity, and applying that to the work we're doing on small business will also attract new folks.
I think from a policy perspective, we're doing the right things, and so it's about doubling down on all of that and continuing to promote innovation and entrepreneurship. I think from a regulatory, kind of landscape, regulation is obviously important and very necessary, but it's also imperative that we make sure that it's clear, that it's predictable, and that it's not overly burdensome. And so continuing to have that two-way engagement, not just speaking to the small business community, but taking in what we're hearing from the small business community and helping that inform our decision-making, our policy-making, and how we communicate these decisions. I think, we heard a little bit about the importance of kind of the digital transformation and modernization and making sure that these processes to access resources are more simple in the modern age. And then I think from a messaging standpoint, Rhett did a really great job of this, of not just talking about the high-level numbers and great things to accomplish of 19 million, this and that, but how do we couple that and make it really tangible by talking about a specific small business in a community and really putting a face to these sorts of accomplishments. And so that's something that I think there's a lot of benefit in, and Governor Beshear's re-elect was a great example. He wasn't talking infrastructure, he was talking about the Brent Spence Bridge project and the federal funding for that. And so being able to take that kind of localizing lens to everything, I think is beneficial. And then just generally making sure that we continue to drive home the point that we are the party of Main Street, and that we are the ones that care about each and every person here and their communities, and the work that we're doing is not top down, but that it's middle out. And so I think those are kind of the points that I think about.
I think a lot of people divorce their political identity from their business identity in a lot of ways, and they do that maybe as a form of self-preservation, because they're worried about making their political ideology too out there. Is it going to hurt my business? Same reason a lot of entertainers don't want to come out and say something vocally, right? But you would be surprised how many people are thinking exactly the way you're thinking. And so I think as a Small Business Council, one of the things that we can do is make it about the policy, the policy, the policy. What are we doing on the streets every day that's helping these small businesses? So when we're out there and we're talking about our political viewpoints, we're not, falling into this trap of falling down a dark hole where we can't win a battle, right? We're keeping it to the facts, and we're saying, no, this is how my party has helped small businesses. This is what we're doing. And I think that's something that I know we're doing already, but just really keeping that focus, because, man, I fall into it too. Sometimes I gotta put the phone away and stop being a Facebook keyboard warrior, because I'll be like, nah, that's wrong, you're crazy. Yeah, we all have those friends and family where you just kind of scroll through, you're like, oh my God, these people are out to lunch. When we love them, they're our friends, our relatives, our family. How can we have a dialogue with them? And I think that's the other thing too, civility. We are the party of civility. And I think we stay above the fray and we talk about the facts, and that can change a lot of people's hearts and minds.
Yeah, I'll pick up what Claire left off. I'll be really brief. I think this is about storytelling. You know, for those of you who are business owners in the audience, tell your story, you know, in a super non-political way. Talk to your employees where you feel comfortable. Talk to your communities. If you are willing to speak out, you know, write an op-ed or letter to the editor for your local paper. Talk, you know, it doesn't have to be political. It can just be about how a certain policy has helped your life or helped your business, more importantly. Those are the things that really move people, change hearts and minds, and I think that's the sort of connection that we need right now to be able to really communicate both about policy and the sort of future that we want for our country.
Yeah, so I'll kind of connect some dots here, I think. My view would be we have to vertically integrate the message as well as business. You know, people who are small business owners don't exist because of other small businesses. They exist because there's a waterfall effect from big businesses. You know, every company out there wants a big business as a customer, not a whole bunch of small businesses as customers. Every big business out there needs to look at diversifying their supplier base. They need to look at employees. So vertically connecting the message. It is not about big versus small versus big. One is better than the other. They all have to exist together. We have to integrate them. We have to integrate the message. And if our policies support that integration with a little bit of carrot and a little bit of stick, we'll have amazing outcomes. If we continue to put one against the other, we will have terrible outcomes.
Well, thank you. I think we had more questions, but I think we're going to have to call it today. But I want to thank Clara, George, Charity, David, and Rhett. Now, look at us. This is truly a diverse and small business group, right? Yeah, look at that. We're all represented here. So thank each of our panel speakers for joining us. It's a very important discussion. And to our audience, thank you for joining us. Now I'm going to turn it back to Andrew.
First of all, let's thank Christine. Christine was the core part that made this day a success. So let's thank her and thank this amazing panel. And how wonderful it is that we can have speakers that look like every corner of America. So, thank you. You know, you've heard today, I think, from several speakers and many different viewpoints, what it is and why Democrats are speaking up for small businesses, particularly those that come women-owned, disadvantaged businesses. We've heard today how Senate Democrats have been there advocating and making sure that we have programs that stand up for these businesses. How the House, we heard from Representative McGarvey about how the House Small Business Committee, particularly the Democrats there, have been fighting to make sure that equity becomes a part of what they do and what our policies are to make sure that we create more opportunity, not only for Americans going forward, but also to rectify some of the wrongs of the past. We heard today from a small business owner who talked about the differences, that democratic policies can make to help small business owners. And then this amazing panel talking about the policies that came out of the White House. We've had one of the most pro small business presidents and vice presidents I have ever seen. This is my 9th convention. We first started doing these programs back in 2012, but I have never seen so much focused policy and events out there as what we have seen from this White House. So we have so much at stake. We have a person running, we have a presidential candidate on the other side who talks about small business as long as it's his big business that he's trying to grow. We have so much at stake, and this is an opportunity for all of us to talk about what all of you can do. And for those of you who will not hear the same presentation on Wednesday, we have someone here from the campaign who can talk about what the campaign is doing. I would also like to urge many of you who maybe aren't, if you are in a state where there is a small business caucus and council, we need you to join. If you live in a state where you don't have one, talk to one of our region directors here. They can work with you to make sure and help you build one working with your Democratic Party. Our voice needs to be there at the table. We need to reach out to small businesses. And as I'm going to, now that I've done selling what the DNC Small Business Council itself can do, I would like to welcome Richard Garcia, who is our small business mobilization lead, to talk about what the campaign is doing and what you all can do to help elect Democrats and make sure we hold on to the White House, we expand the Senate, and take back the House. So, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. How we doing? Woo! Thank you, thank you. Thanks to each of y'all for being here today. Let me first present myself because I'm somewhat new to the role. My name is Richard Garcia, and I'm the National Director for Small Business Engagement for the Harris for President campaign. It's my honor to join, thank you. It's my honor to join in this role to support America's almost 35 million small businesses who, by the way, contribute half of America's GDP. So we need to make sure that we recognize that and we continue to share those stories that we were just hearing from the panel, and that excitement and that energy to get our small businesses off the ground. I come from a small business background, both personally and professionally. Growing up, my dad had a travel agency for most of my childhood, so that one of the stories really resonated with me earlier about how even children of immigrants, I'm the son of immigrants as well, contribute so much to small businesses. And there I was at 9 or 10 years old picking up the phone for customers, and them probably wondering, who's this high-pitched kid like talking to me right now on the phone? But all those lessons about the grit and the discipline and the determination that small businesses need to get started and to get going and to continue to grow is not past me in a personal capacity. And then also in a professional capacity, I come from the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the largest Latino business organization in the country. And in that role, I served as chief of staff there in my last 2.5 years, and I was able to travel around the country in that capacity with their national network of Latino chambers of commerce, hearing all the stories of small businesses and minority-owned businesses growing all across the country. And I know that we were talking earlier about the great work that Democrats do, both in the White House and in Congress, to help support small businesses. So I was really, really glad to hear Senator Hirono, Congresswoman Judy Chu, Congressman McGarvey, about the role that both the Senate and the House small business committees play to support. Because when I was at the Hispanic Chamber, sure enough, we were there towards in the throes of COVID. And when the Paycheck Protection Program was enacted and when it got rolled out, as I'm sure y'all might remember, it was a little bit stumbly and it wasn't perhaps ideal. And I remember in my role, we started getting phone calls, each individual staff member and the main line for the chamber, of people saying, hey, I heard about the PPP and it came and went. And I talked to my bank and they said that there's no more money. And I was left out. And then we approached with a national coalition, with the National LGBT Chamber, with the U.S. Black Chamber, with the National ACE, the National Asian Chamber, and others. We sent coalition letters signed by both the national chambers and regional and local chambers, a letter to both the House and the Senate Small Business Committees to raise the voice of small businesses and minority-owned small businesses to make sure that they don't get left behind. And as a result of that, thanks to the leadership of the members of Congress that were here, and of course, Ranking Member, at the time, Chair Nydia Velázquez, and on the Senate side at the time, Chair Senator Ben Cardin, we were able to carve out millions of dollars in Paycheck Protection Program funds for community development financial institutions and minority serving institutions to make sure that they got access to the fair and equitable access to the resources that they needed and they deserved at the time. And so that's why I'm so excited to be here today in my new role as Small Business Engagement Director at the national level. So thank you so much, Andrew, in your capacity as chair of the DNC Small Business Council. Of course, thank you to the Executive Vice Chair, Christina Chin Ryan, right there. Thank you so much for standing up that excellent panel as well. I know it's no small feat. And so what I'm here to say is the Vice President understands the important role that small businesses play in the country. Someone mentioned it earlier, how in every single campaign stop, the Vice President and now Governor Walz as well will make a point to stop at small businesses across the country and hear their stories about what they need, because they know that it's the backbone of the country. A few weeks ago, I was on the Business Leaders for Harris call. We've already had a couple of virtual and physical events throughout the country to support the cause. And I think they put it really well. Kamala Harris is the pro-business candidate in this election. And here you heard it as well. Democrats up and down the ticket are the pro-business candidates, because when you take care of people, you take care of businesses. And when you take care of businesses, you get to see economic growth in communities across the country of all backgrounds, of diverse backgrounds. And so as we move forward, we need a president with economic policies that prioritize that growth, that prioritize rule of law, it was mentioned, that prioritize national security, access to international market, our position as leaders on the global stage. And we need to continue to take care of our businesses in that form. So through the record investments, whether it's through the American Rescue Plan and the bipartisan infrastructure law that I know we were talking about earlier, we've been able to, thankfully, as Rhett was mentioning earlier, more than 19 million small businesses announced last week. That is exciting news, and I also think that we'll probably reach 20 pretty soon, 20 million new small businesses, thanks to the strongest economic recovery that the U.S. has had in the developed world. So what am I here to say now? We need each and every single one of your voices on the campaign. We need to uplift those stories, and we need to have real voices by real people with real businesses stand up and say, Kamala Harris is the pro-business candidate in this election. And thanks to the policies that Democrats in the House and the Senate have been able to push, and also at the state level, to be sure. There's many stories of success in whether it's Minnesota or Nevada or states across the country supporting their small businesses at the state level as well. We need to get out the vote, and we need to tell our story, because in the words of Governor Walz, now on the campaign trail as well, I know that I may be preaching to the choir, but the choir really does need to sing. And so I'll be here to stick around afterwards in case anybody wants to talk about how to get involved. We're going to stand up a lot of in-person and virtual events. We need to go out to every state in the country, and specifically, of course, our battleground states. And if we can partner and be an equal partner to each of you as we visit communities across the country and uplift the voices that we need to do, it would be our pleasure to work with y'all in that capacity. So with that, thank you so much, and thank you for supporting small businesses.
I'll tell you, we did, in 2020, small business outreach did, I think, well in excess of 20 to 25 small business roundtables, battleground states across this country. Got great talking points for outreach. I have every bit of faith that this campaign will continue that legacy and that hard work with your help. So thank you. We would like to also encourage you, if you're not already a member of our Facebook and Instagram pages as well, DNC Small Biz, B-I-Z. So please sign up there, and you'll hear more from us and other events going on. And I just want to close first of all by thanking the executive board for the amazing job that they did. So thank all of you. If you all want to stand up again for a moment. Rhett, you're on a panel. You can stand up too. And thank our speakers and all of you for being here today. Our work is just beginning, and we're proud to have all of you as partners in this efforts to keep America on the right track, to continue to stand up for small business in this country, and to elect Harris Walz to the White House. So thank you very much. And we'll see hopefully many of you Wednesday, same time.